All right, this evening we're going to talk about ratios and proportions. I hope that this is very, very much a review, but I will talk to you as if it is not. All right, the first word we need to make sure that we know is we need to know what is a ratio. Okay, a ratio is a comparison of two integers. We commonly refer to a ratio as a fraction because you have a numerator, which is a value, and you have a denominator, which is a value. And in this case, I have 4 out of 5. So that is a comparison of two integers. Then let's talk about the second word, which is a proportion. A proportion is an equation of two equal ratios. So an example would be 4 is to 5 as 20 is to 25. How do I know that those are equal ratios? Well, if I can find a common factor, I can reduce one of them, and it should come down to lowest terms of both of them. In this case, 20 over 25 can both be reduced down by 4. So if I divide top and bottom by, I am so sorry. If I divide top and bottom by 5, because that's a common factor, 20 divided by 5 is 4, and 25 divided by 5 is 5. Oh, so 20 over 25 can reduce down to 4/5, which is the other side of the equation of that proportion. Now going to look at two things since we know the definition of a ratio and a proportion. The first thing that we want to do is we want to be able to tell are ratios equivalent. Well, if I give you two ratios and I want to see if they are equivalent, step one is I'm going to create a proportion using those two ratios. So let's just say on example 1, I'm given 2/3 and I'm given 5/8. 5/8. And they want me to figure out if these are equivalent ratios. Well, step 1, I'm going to create a proportion. And once I create a proportion, I am going to use cross multiplication to see if the products are equal. So I take the numerator of the first times the denominator, so that's 2 times 8, and I'm checking to see if that is equal to the denominator of the first times the numerator, which is 3 times 5. So 2 times 8 is 16, and 3 times 5 is 15. Are those two products equal? They are not. So therefore, 2/3 and 5/8 are not equivalent ratios. Let's do another one. Example number 2. All right. I have 2 ratios and I want to see if they are equivalent. So step 1 is I'm going to create a proportion. Step 2, I'm going to cross multiply. And my question is, are those products congruent or equal? So 36 times 12, I don't know what that is in my head. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to do, okay, 36 times 12, that's 12, that's 7, that's 6, that's 3, so that's 2, 13, 432. 12, 6, 7, 6, yes. So my product here is 432. Again, is that equal to 24 times 18? Well, let's check. So 24 times 18. 8 times 4 is 32. Carry my 3. 16 plus 3 is 19. 1 times 4 is 4. And 1 times 2 is 2. That's 2. That's 13. Carry. That's 432. So I put that over here on the right side. And is 432 equal to 432? Yes, it is. Therefore, 24 36s and 12 18ths are equivalent ratios. All right, the second skill that we're going to talk about in this section is how to find a missing part in a proportion. Well, I want to remind us, because last week I brought in that real educated theorem, and can anybody remember what it's called? Mean extreme product theorem. And what that says is the product of the means is equal to the product of the extremes. All right, so what is the mean and what is the extreme? Well, let's write a proportion without putting the values in. And we'll say the numerator of the first is called the first term. The denominator is the second. The numerator of the second one is called the third. And the denominator of that one is called the fourth. Well, the extremes are the end values, which would be 1 and 4. And the means are the middle. I think we talked about Oreo cookies. And that would be the second and third term. So to show how that works, it would be 1 times 4 is equal to 2 times 3. And that's the first term, fourth term, second term, and third term. So now let's apply that on this problem right up here. I have x is to 5 as 10 is to 13. Well, to find my missing value, I'm going to use cross multiplication, but now that we're educated, we're going to use the mean extreme product theorem. So the product of the means, which is 5 times 10, is equal to the product of the extremes, which is x times 13. Let's simplify that step, and 5 times 10 is 50, which is equal to 13x. And how do we solve for our unknown? Well, we divide both sides by 13, and that would give me x is equal to 50 over 13. Now, that is the value that I would put in here, and then I would have equal ratios. So the product of the means is equal to the product of the extremes gives me the missing value. So we're going to forget about saying cross multiply, and we're going to use the mean extreme product theorem. Let's do another example. All right, up here on the board I have 2 examples, and let's start with the first one. The first example says -3 is to y as 2 is to 8. I'm missing that value right here, so I need to solve for it. And since I have a proportion to solve for it, I use the mean extreme product theorem. So the product of the means is equal to the product of the extremes. So -3 times 8 is -24. There is nothing wrong with going y times 2 is equal to -3 times 8. You can put that step in. And then when I simplify it, that's what I have up here on the board. 2y is equal to -24. How do I solve for y? I divide both sides by 2. And that would give me y is equal to -24 divided by 2 is -12. How can I make sure I'm correct? Plug it in. -3 over 12 reduces down to -1/4. And 2 over 8 reduces down to 1/4. Boom, boom, check, check. My missing value is y is equal to -12. So let's do the last example. Again, I am looking for an unknown, but this time my unknown is tagged up with a 1. So the mean extreme product theorem says the product of the means, which is 18 times z plus 1, is equal to the product of the extremes, which is 9 times 54. You will see that I put that in parentheses because I have to think of that as a 1 value. So what do I have to do first? I have to use the distributive property and share the 18 with everything inside there. So 18 times z is 18z. 18 times 1 is 18. And then 54 times 9, that would be 36, 45, 48. That would give me 486. Again, 18z plus 18, 54 times 9 is 486 is equal to 486. I will subtract 18 from both sides. Gives me 18z is equal to, and that would be a positive, that's 18, that's 6, that's 4. Divide both sides by 18, and I have 468 divided by 18. 3, that would be, oh, it's too much. So 2 would be 36, 108. Would that be maybe 6? 48? Yes, it is. Therefore, had to do the division. Z is equal to 26. Not sure? Plug it back into the original. If it makes true equivalent ratios, boom, boom, check, check. I'll see you in class tomorrow to get your assignment. Have a good evening.